Mac here with you on Birds 365. Somebody's having fun there. What the hell?
Oh, boy. Here we go.
Oh, we got little Farzetta in the picture.
We have little Toots. Manuel, you want to say hi? She's a big Eagles fan.
Yeah.
She just rewatched Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman's end of the year press conference. It still has her like this.
I thought that was more Hassan Reddick. Yeah.
She too is seeking a trade for a better set of parents. She also wants $25 million, and I'm like, $25 million Kraft mac and cheeses,
jelly beans. Yeah, we got $25 million jelly beans.
That's not bad. Yeah.
I thought it was maybe the fact that she heard me go, Eagles are power ranked 15th right next season. What happened to top 2 and 3? They're 15th to start the season.
I wish I knew. I wish I knew.
Yeah.
That happened quickly, right? When you hear from your All-Pro, your Pro Bowl right tackle that you were dismantled by the team that was actually in the Super Bowl representing the NFC, doesn't really bode well for anybody.
Yeah. By the way, I'm surprised that got into the Eagles' head. And obviously I want to cry about that as well. So. Nick Bosa came, and you remember all Eagles fans got to jump on their swords and say Nick Bosa doesn't know anything. And he's saying, we exposed the Eagles. We gave the blueprint. The Eagles kind of bought into that themselves. That is a little bit strange to me that they've gone this far. A lot of uncertainty with this team. It surprises me, Mark. Where'd the swagger go?
Well, dismantled and neutered is kind of what happened to this team, unfortunately. And I go back to looking at this team from afar and saying, what was the moment? Like in the week of the Super Bowl is the time I do my biggest reflection of what's going on in the Super Bowl, if the Eagles are in it or not, and why aren't they in it if they're not in it. And the biggest thing that I go back to is the Desai change, is changing your defensive play caller from Sean Desai to Matt Patricia, because what you did with, you want to talk about swagger. Yeah. Two things happened when you did that. One, you told your defense, we were 10-3 in spite of you. How dare you make us have 3 losses on our great record? This is against you, the defense. You're the problem. And it also, according to what Hassan Reddick said, at the same week, at the same time that A.J. Brown was having his huge locker room session with everyone there for the first time in 2.5 weeks, if A.J. Brown didn't address the media, we'd all be talking more about what Hassan Reddick said that week, because he literally snickered at the idea of being dropped back 7 times in coverage by Matt Patricia. I now forget who it was that asked the question at the locker with Hassan Reddick. Hey, we noticed on the All-22 there was a lot of confusion, guys running in and out at the last minute. Was the communication bad? Is the terminology different? Whatever the case may be. And Hassan Reddick said, well, yeah, I mean, the higher-ups thought it was a good idea to make a change at this point in the season, and we're getting a lot of different terminology now. And a lot of us thought, well, hold on.
The terminology,
The 2 things that jumped out to me about that was, one, Hassan Reddick was so open and honest about the higher-ups, quote-unquote, wanted to make the change. And then the other, this was supposed to be the only thing that was supposed to be different was the play caller. You weren't supposed to have any different terminology. Even if you have the analogy I make is, if you hire one chef to cook you a meal and midway through you fire him and you bring somebody else in to cook you that meal, it might be the same entree, but it's going to look a lot different. The presentation and plating is going to be a lot different. And that's essentially what happened to this Philadelphia Eagles team. And you told essentially your locker room that your head coach doesn't have as much power as maybe was led on to be, if that move was truly made by the higher-ups.
Then let me get you on the record, since you're right. Hassan Reddick said what he said. I need what Marc Farzetta believes.
Yeah.
When it happened, Sirianni said, my call, but he said it briefly. He said it, all right, yeah, right, wink, wink, nod, nod. But in the post-season gathering with he and Howie together, he looked in the camera and said, that was me. I made that decision. I did it for the best of the football team, the justification and everything else. But he made a believer of me that day. That it was his decision, that he wanted to change the play calling on defense. He thought, John kept telling us on a day and day, They took the third down play calling away from him weeks before. So this didn't come out of left field. This was kind of a process that they got to. Hassan Reddick saying basically he believes Howie Roseman, Jeffrey Lurie did it, not Nick Sirianni, that it was pushed down his throat. I flip-flopped on that in the middle of the season. Do you believe Hassan Reddick or do you believe Nick Sirianni?
Oh, I believe Hassan Reddick, because here's what we know. And this is part of the positive thing that came out from the locker room session at A.J. Brown. Nick takes it on the chin, man. Nick will take the gut punch for the organization, whether that be for his players or whether that be for the quote-unquote higher-ups or in the front office. He will take blame. And it's one of the most famous things. You look at any head coach, and Andy Reid certainly said this all the time. He said he learned it from Mike Holmgren. Coach gets all the blame and none of the credit. Like, that's just kind of how it works. When something works, because the players executed well, the players did their job, the coaches around them, the offensive coordinator, defense, they did a great job. When something goes haywire, when something goes bananas, yeah, it's my fault. I take full responsibility. It's all on me. I think Nick's willing to give that courtesy to his bosses, to his higher-ups, as he is to his players as well. I think, and I don't mean this in a derogatory term, but he is the ultimate company man. He's the ultimate man to take those bullets for the people that are making the bigger decisions when it comes to the organization. He will take those bullets. He will take that fire.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn on this one. I agree with you 100%, Mark, that he will, protect his players, and we saw that. Now with the guys, especially now, I'm not sure if that's going to be 100%. I believe Nick, and Jody will tell you, for some things, not only in front of the camera, but behind the camera, it was his decision. That third down situation wasn't weeks, it was the week prior. So I just want to clarify that. But
wasn't 2 weeks ahead of time?
It was the Dallas game before the Seattle game.
So that was 1 week.
Yeah, which was 1 week. But what was weeks before, Nick started thinking about changing when they were 8-1 at the bye week. When they were 8-6, forget about 10-3. After 8-1, 8-1, which tells me right off the bat they didn't like Sean Desai for whatever reason. You hear the term presence and for whatever. So there was more going on than just the defense was pretty bad as well. Mm-hmm. And by the way, at times during that 8-1 start, Mark, they played pretty well. They had games against Miami and Tampa early in the season, and they played pretty well. Mm-hmm. So to me, I'm a guy who says Nick shouldn't have gotten fired, but boy, this is a fireable offense.
That's what
this was his decision. So I'm like, I don't know where to go.
That's interesting. Myself. Here's the thing. When I look at Sean Desai, look, it was no masterpiece. All right, let's just get that out of the way. Let's just state the obvious for the people that yell the obvious. However, there were second half adjustments that he would make or the defense would make that if they were having a bad first half, they would rebound in the second half. And I don't know if that was the offense taking control or him just straight up making adjustments. But the game that I always look at is the game against the Rams. I mean, yes, they went up against the Miami Dolphins.
Good game.
Yeah, they had a great game against the Miami Dolphins, great game plan against that team. It was great. Eli Ricks played out of his mind against Tyreek Hill, and we thought that would be a lot more of things to come. Unfortunately, it wasn't. But when you look at that Rams game, Cooper Kupp in that game had 96 yards, 97 yards in the first half, 25 in the second. Like, completely different. I think 7 catches in the first half, 2 in the second. Like, that to me show, oh, wow, okay, if you don't have it to start out, you better have it coming out of the halftime. And he did. In a lot of instances, he had it. So I at least had confidence that if you didn't have the right game plan, you would make the adjustments within the game to put yourself on the right course. And I would tell our friend Bill Colarulo a lot. It was like, at that point in the season, the Eagles didn't have bad games. They would have bad halves. Man, they made up for it as the season went on. But that was kind of where you were at. But the minute you made that change fully is the minute I think that you
because there were a couple times, guys, let me throw in the Rams game you bring up. That's a good one, Mark, where Slay went up to him and said, dude, we gotta calm this down. We got a bunch of young players playing who don't know what they're doing. And he kind of took over in the slot for a very short period of time. So when you have players, and then Kevin Byard, remember the Kevin Byard conversation about guys doing their own
Let me
scouting.
do the scouting report.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I think that was overblown. I think he was trying to get guys involved. That's something, if you're winning, people say, yeah, that's a good idea. Take ownership of the defense. But it was portrayed in a negative way. So when you hear veterans like Slay and Byard, saying we have to do things differently, and you're not making that change, you don't recognize it. That's maybe part of the presence we're talking about. He didn't have the presence of Jim Schwartz. Nobody does. He didn't have the presence of Jonathan Gannon. Those are the two people you're coming off of. And all of a sudden, Sean Desai comes in. He's more of a teacher. That's his background, not an old school football guy. I think that hurt him. I really do. Mm-hmm. He had his moments, and he was a hell of a lot better than Matt Patricia.
I mean, here's the thing. I said at the time that it was crazy enough. It was so crazy that it had to work. Like, there's no way they make this change, this crazy change, this late in the season, and it doesn't work, because like this is such a bold move. It's a bold strategy. And oh man, that was the iceberg in the Titanic, man. That was not good. And if the Eagles were really looking at it, if Nick Sirianni was really looking at it at 8-1, saying he needed to make a change, then that gives validation to every single Eagles fan that's just like, this team sucks. And the other fan is like, they're 8-1, man, relax. It's like, no, you don't understand. Like,
well, does it get validation though? Does it? Because I think it completely fell apart.
Well, let's put it like this. If you made that change at 8-1, yes, it looks crazy, but at least you have time to make the adjustment. Still, what's bonkers to me is, in any way, shape, or form, how Sean Desai was a better option than Denard Wilson, for instance. Like, I'm not saying Denard Wilson was going to blow people away by becoming the next great defensive mind in the NFL or anything, but at least it would have satisfied some players. Wow. At least you would have thought that would have been a good idea by the players' standard.
The reason Sean Desai was here, Vic Fangio.
Oh, because he shook hands with Vic Fangio once?
No, that was Vic's recommendation. They asked basically Vic,
if Sean, we can't have you, who are we going to have?
Yeah. So
and that's why I got no problem with where the Eagles are now. And some people do that. How the hell is Sirianni the coach, but he can't pick his own coaching staff? Nick Sirianni has done some good things, including taking the Eagles to a Super Bowl last year. One thing that he hasn't proven to me is he can pick co-coaches, guys with him. He's gotten one right, Shane Steichen. That's it. Gannon was an Eagle hire just as much as it was a Nick Sirianni hire. John had let us in on that as soon as Gannon got the job. Hey, the Eagles were hiring Gannon to be the defense coordinator, no matter who their coach was.
By the way, Nick confirmed that as
right.
well.
I knew you were dead on with that one. He's got one right, Shane Steichen. All the other coaching hires he's done since, not good. I'm sorry, Nick. That might be not a strength of his. Yeah. So if you decide you want to keep the guy, I got no problem with going. And by the way, we're going to pick a coach. We're going to hire the two coordinators and then let them have a lot of say with the staff. Some people think that's a crazy way to run an organization. I don't. I'm okay with it.
I'll put it like this. Here's my concern. And people think it's all about play calling. You're only scratching the surface if you're only arguing, well, Nick Sirianni doesn't call plays, so what does he do? Here's the problem. Nick Sirianni took this job and was the play caller. All right, so you're talking about a lot of responsibility for a first-time head coach and play caller in the NFL. Shortly thereafter went, this ain't for me. I'm going to be the more CEO type guy, the John Harbaugh, John Harbaugh, Dan Campbell, as he is in Detroit.
Everybody wants to use Dan.
Right.
Fourth down goes bonkers.
Till he just goes bat, crazy in fourth down. Yeah. Or a 2-point conversion. But Nick Sirianni took over that responsibility. And ever since then, we have seen this diminishing role of responsibility with Nick Sirianni, going from head coach and play caller to just head coach to game plan to now to all throughout this season. And John, you were one of the many reporters that asked him throughout this year, basically changing play calls or, who's in charge of the offense and what's going on with the game plan. This is my offense. This is my offense. This is my offense. Brian calls the plays. My offense. Brian calls the plays. So, okay. And then this end of the year press conference happens. Whose offense is it going to be? It's going to be our offense. Yeah. So what is now? Look, I know everyone jumps to, and rightfully so, because it's hilarious. what is it you say you do here? I know everyone jumps to that, but the actual question was, so what's your role? A legitimate question for a coach who has had diminishing responsibility in his time here in Philly. Hey, look, the success has been there. 3 playoff appearances, 1 Super Bowl appearance, one of the top offenses a year ago in the NFL. Great, wonderful, beautiful, wonderful. But what's your role now? If this is the first time ever, you're saying the offensive coordinator will have control over the offense. Okay, so what's your role? I expected, when Tim McManus asked the question, I expected him to say, oh, well, I will do, as I've been doing, I do the game plan and the offensive coordinator calls the plays. That wasn't what was said. And that
was like the retired guy.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
So
it's like, what are you going to do today, dear? Well, maybe I'll go to a defensive meeting. I don't know. Maybe I'll go to the park. Maybe I'll take a walk.
Yeah. I got to go to Home Depot. I have to pick up something.
What he should have said was, and if he had said this, my God, what a genius he would be. I'll make sure the team knows the rules of overtime.
Overtime.
That's kind of important. And
I guarantee you the Eagles know the rules because of John Ferrari. I guarantee you the Eagles know the rules. John got him changed.
He was major mover and shaker.
Yeah.
One thing I'll say, one last thing on the Nick Sirianni situation. I'll talk about it, obviously whatever you want to, but the CEO head coach type thing. I am officially demoting usage of the CEO term with Nick Sirianni. We are bumping him down. He is no longer a CEO, John and Jody. Too much. It's too much authority as a CEO. He is now like in baseball. We don't call him a coach. We call him a manager. He's a manager. That's what he is. He's the regional manager of the Philadelphia Eagles. He's
like a game manager. That's an insult.
I know. I'm just saying. We don't call the quarterbacks like Brock Purdy. We don't call them the game CEOs.
Yeah.
Call them game managers.
All right.
Sirianni now a manager. That's what he is.
I'm with you, though. That's part of one of my pet peeves, Mark, is people calling him a CEO coach like it's new. He was already a CEO coach. Like, right. I know we're downgrading it now for you. I'll say he was already a game manager before. Nothing has changed except evidently Kellen Moore has the final say on the offense, whereas he did it before. Now, and he was forced to hire a bunch of people he probably didn't want to hire and fire a bunch of people he probably didn't want to fire. How is that tenable? Like, how does Jeffrey Lurie look at that and say, you know what? And by the way, he doesn't give a shit about me because he's got $6 million that says at the end of the day. So he's like, who cares what McMullen says? And I get it. But how do you have $6 billion? How do you be that kind of success? And you go, this seems like a good idea. I can't wrap my head around it. Help me.
Because you are the success. You were here in the Andy Reid era. If you're Jeffrey Lurie, like, think about this. Like, Jeffrey Lurie has owned an NFL franchise for 27 years.
Yeah. Okay. Over a quarter century.
Yeah. Okay. He's owned an NFL. Has this franchise in any other ownership other than back-to-back world championships in 1948 and 49? Have they ever had the sustained success they've had under a Lurie ownership?
No, absolutely. He's a phenomenal. I've said it to Jody. Jody can back me up on this. I said he's a great owner. When you compare him to other owners in this profession, by and large, he's a great owner. Not perfect, and he makes mistakes, and he's made mistakes in the past. I think he's made a mistake here. I think he would have learned from the Doug Peterson escapade instead of repeating it. He doesn't seem to have learned from that. Maybe because they had success and they bounced back so quickly.
Exactly. All right. So you made it to 2 Super Bowls in 5 years with a different quarterback and a different head coach. What's the constant? Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie. What else? What the hell else do we need? I feel like that's too much of the mindset.
Well, all right. Let me frame it to both of you this way. So we'll go back to Doug. How do Press Taylor and goes from rising young coach? Oh, we got to keep this guy because he came in with Chip Kelly. This guy's a future star. This guy found the Philly special. This guy's going to be a future head coach in this league. He's an idiot. Let's get him out of here. We can't move forward with Press Taylor.
Yeah.
Same thing now with Brian Johnson. oh, this guy's a shooting star. We have to promote Brian Johnson because we're going to lose Brian Johnson. We can't possibly lose Brian Johnson. And then less than 12 months later, hey, Brian, there's the door. How do you go from that and say, I can't figure it out. How do you move that quickly?
It's irrational. I mean, it's as simple as that. It's irrational. And if you've had any amount of success as an owner in the amount of time that Jeffrey Lurie's been here, again, greatest stretch we've ever seen with the Eagles. I mean, you think you're the constant. You think you're the reason for it. And now with all this time built up of literally being there, draft room, you're listening, you're going to the Senior Bowl, like you're obviously going to the combine. You feel more like a general manager at this point than you do an owner. I mean, you've had conversations with some of the greatest minds in football. Now you really start to feel like you know what the hell you're doing. So you can go exceed the expectation of an owner and just write big fat checks to actually being involved in decisions and influencing analytics and saying how the famous conversation with Doug Peterson after they beat the Packers in Green Bay. Well, why didn't you throw the ball more? Well, because running was working. Like that type of thing. You don't need that from your owner. I feel like the owner needs to write big fat checks and give a damn about the fan base, which I think he does, and I give him credit for that. But ultimately, let the guys that have been brought up in the world of football make those football decisions. And that, to me, is something that I feel like is going more and more by the wayside as we continue in the Lurie era.
Here's where I'm not going to get on Nick Sirianni's case. And, John, you're kind of leaning toward flexing that I guess I'm a wuss and I wouldn't be willing to flex. Doug Peterson was an NFL quarterback. He made NFL quarterback money for years in the National Football League. And he got to the breaking point and he just said, Jeffy, fire my ass. No, that's not going to do for me. I'm not allowing you to dictate the coaches for me. So see you later. Bye. Nick was in the exact same position. Here's what we're dictating you to take as a coach if you want to stay. And he said, okay, fine. Because he had been making quarterback coach, wide receiver coach money. There's a little bit of a difference between wide receiver coach money and NFL quarterback money. Doug could afford to do that. Doug could say, hold on, let me get
wait
my
a minute.
phone app
Whoa.
and see how much I got in my account. Oh, yeah, Jeff Lurie, here's what I think about your plan. Take my power away. Sirianni doesn't have that.
Now, Nick's got 3 kids, but Nick's already made $14 million. And if he gets fired, guess what? He continues to make $7 million a year if he gets fired. I mean, he's going to be just fine. I agree with you. Wide receiver coach money isn't quarterback money in the NFL, but he's long past that. He's been the head coach of this football team at $7 million a year, even with 3 kids. And Marc, how many kids do you have now?
Just 2.
Just two.
Yeah.
I think you could get by with $7 million. I could be wrong. Kids are very expensive at this stage, young kids. Can you get by on $7 million? He's thinking about it.
Geez. I don't know. Go-Gurts are really expensive.
It's all what you're used to. It's what level you live at. The 99% of the population get by.
I'm not advocating quitting, by the way.
What would you do? Either you say yes, Jeff, or no, Jeff. What would John McMullen have said?
Easy. You say, no. Whomever, Brian's going to be my offensive coordinator. We're not going to change. He was going to change defensive coordinators to Vic. Mm-hmm. Vic's going to be my defensive coordinator. This is my plan. If Jeffrey goes back and says that's not acceptable, you say, well, I'm the head coach of the football team. That's my plan. You force him to fire you. And you got the $7 million coming.
Sure. I'm not saying he walk out the door without his check. Yeah. He should get his money to go out the door, but it comes down to you either are going to accept the terms that your owner's laying out or you're not. And you're saying you would have walked away. I'm saying I don't know that I could have done that.
I personally would have. But I also know if I'm putting myself in Nick Sirianni's shoes, I also know he's going to get another chance because of his record. Mm-hmm. And people are going to look like Jeffrey Lurie is the lunatic in that situation. Nick's going to be just fine. So that's part of it. Nick, I can't believe how many people thought, oh, Nick had to stay. Nick wouldn't get another job. I mean, are you kidding me? Have you seen this hiring cycle? You got a guy with a 667 winning percentage and three consecutive.
John, I don't think you want to go there. This hiring cycle, the greatest coach in history of National Football League didn't get a job.
Well, that's because he's 71, Jody. let's put the context into it. Nick is a young man. There's a lot of ageism when it comes to Bill and Pete Carroll.
Does Nick blow people away in interviews? He's going to say, "I went to a Super Bowl."
Blew away Jeffrey Lurie at one point.
Okay, I think the second job is trickier to get.
Boy, did you see some of the coaches they hired in this league? I mean, it is 660. Now because of the timing, he might have had to
do me a favor. Pick one. Who was the worst hire this offseason?
Who was the worst hire?
The worst hire, the one that you think was less qualified. Since did you see the coaches they've hired? Give me one. Give me the top of the list guy.
Dave Canales.
Okay. Who was more apt, ready? His resume was impressive to be a head coach in the National Football League. Dave Canales or Nick Sirianni when he got the Eagle job?
Nick Sirianni. It's about even. I get where you're going, but that's not where Nick is now. That's the point. That's not where Nick. Yeah, at the time, I'm with you. Nick was way off the radar. And he didn't even get another interview. The Eagles were the only. I'm not talking about Nick Sirianni coming in.
Right.
I'm talking to Nick Sirianni with the 667 winning percentage and the 3 playoff. That's a lot different, Jody, than Nick Sirianni coming in.
You think he would have gotten a job immediately in this? No,
well, the timing hurts, and that is the one thing I think, because of Nick's age, he probably doesn't want to sit out a year. He might have had to sit out a year because of the timing,
right?
But I think immediately
Doug had to wait a year. So
yeah, because of the timing, they fired him very late.
Yep,
they fired him very late.
But Doug, of course, again, Doug had the Super Bowl ring on his resume. Yeah. And he's like, I'll get a job in 5 minutes with the background of NFL quarterback, head coach that won the Super Bowl, all that stuff. And then with Nick Sirianni, here's the thing, though, with him. Look, $7 million is $7 million. And I don't think anyone that listening or watching this is scoffing at $7 million. No, okay. But
I'm not scoffing.
Let's look at this for a sec. And I don't mean this to be funny at all. The guy loves ball. The guy loves football.
He does.
It would destroy him to
Probably
think he wasn't invited to the sandbox for a full year. Even with a $7 million pillow, I don't think he is. I don't know if he wants to stay away from football for a full year.
And the age hurts there. I don't think he wants to. I think that's part of the reason he accepted. I don't think he wants to sit out a year. Yeah. I think that's a big part of it. And he's certainly not going to take a lesser role to be an offensive coordinator or a senior offensive assistant at his age. So, yeah, I think that's a big part of it. But if I'm Jeffrey Lurie, my biggest criticism of Jeffrey Lurie is it's your team. You can do what you want, but show the courage of your convictions. If you think the guy did a bad job, blow out the guy and bring in somebody else. Don't straddle the fence. Right now we have a guy with, again, who has to coach with a bunch of people he didn't want to hire because he had to fire a bunch of people he didn't want to fire. I don't know how that works.
I have a question. And you guys have covered this league for a minute more than I have, right? I can't remember. So let's just talk about this vicious cycle for a second, because you mentioned, John, a second ago with Jeffrey Lurie kind of getting into this area of hiring these coaches, these coordinators, firing them, keeping that coach. I can't remember an instance where, and this could happen because the Eagles are in this vicious cycle. So Kellen Moore comes in. Kellen Moore with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Jalen Hurts, a revamped Jalen Hurts, with or without Kelsey, still a pretty damn good offensive line. And Kellen Moore revamps the offense. He's not going to get head coach interviews next year?
Oh, sure he is.
So, okay, so now you're in this vicious cycle. So now he's gone. Who's next? And now Jalen Hurts.
You can't worry about it.
But I'm saying if you want
to get the guys to help you win this year.
Absolutely.
Oh, my God, we can't hire someone because he may be hired away in 12 months.
I'm rooting.
You got to get the best guy.
But then you're in the same. It's a vicious cycle, Jody. Then you're in the same thing.
You and 32 other teams, except 30 of them aren't going to make a Super Bowl go.
By the way,
what are we going to do?
Marc,
we get to keep our middle of the pack offensive coordinator. But we didn't lose him. I didn't leave.
Now,
He's
I'm
still
not,
here.
wait,
but we're middle of the road.
Or you could have him as head coach and play caller, and you're still doing fine.
I have to apologize to Mark because Mark had a hard out at 8:45.
Oh no,
And you're-
kids are off from school. Sorry, kids.
Oh.
Yeah, I meant to tell you.
All right.
You're a good man, but yeah, I'm good.
Yeah,
no
and
school today.
I
Thanks,
felt
Snow.
bad, but I was going to blame it. You're so compelling. I forgot about the clock. So, all right. I'm
Who are
glad
you?
it worked
Who
out.
are you, Kyle Shanahan?
Yeah. But yes, I'm a bad game manager. I'm a terrible game manager.
No, but here's where we're at. So here's what I was going to ask you. I can't remember a time where a team made it to the playoffs, won in the playoffs, even made it to a Super Bowl, whatever. And then with the head coach there, they're like, all right, head coach, you're fired. We don't want to lose the offensive coordinator. He's now the head coach.
Yeah. I look. And you know what the best thing would be for a reporter, because I just root for stories. Eagles have a great offense, and Kellen Moore goes back to Dallas as the head coach.
Oh,
Joe!
Oh my God, Johnny Mac! What the hell is wrong? I'm going to lose sleep over that. I'm going to forget about that, and then right around the time I go to bed tonight, that's going to come to the forefront. What was that thing Johnny Mac said? Oh, and then I'm going to be up. Thank you for that.
Be absolutely phenomenal. I would love to see that.
Rooting for a story, you selfish bastard.
I'll tell you what's going to happen, which you want to piss McMahon off since he's pissed you off? I'll tell you what could happen. That happens. The Eagles hire the offense coordinator as their new head coach and give Nick his walking papers.
But
if they get the drift that he could go to Dallas and Jerry would hire him, we saw it once. Howie Roseman pointed to the broom closet down the hall and said, Howie, we've already had a desk put in there for you. So he did it once before when Chip threw him up against the wall. Jeff folded. And if the Kellen Moore comes in and is the offensive
it would work with Nick Sirianni
Evan
going down there to be the head coach too. That would work as well. He'd be wearing a Beat Eagles. That's even a better story. He'd have to wear a Beat Eagles t-shirt. That'd be great. And he'd jump up on the bench and start screaming at Eagles fans. Oh, that would be even better, Joe.
You got Moore keeping the job and Sirianni going to take over the Cowboys?
Why not? Jerry tweaking the Eagles.
Oh, boy. You guys, you are a bunch of pot stirrers. Listen to you. Listen to you guys. It's the off-season. This is great. Oh, God bless both of you. That's amazing.
Jerry is not hiring Nick Sirianni. I can guarantee.
No, probably not. Probably not.
The Eagles could hire Kellen Moore as their next head coach, though. But it's not a zero. My fingers are spread just slightly. Here's Nick Sirianni is the coach of the Cowboys. Zero. There is no space in between my fingers. Can't happen.
There you go.
All right. Last one, Mark, since we kept you too long.
Not at all. Go for it.
Apologize at Marc Farzetta, the Farzy Show every morning. You watch it here on the JAKIB Sports YouTube channel. Does a tremendous job. Hassan Reddick, he wants $25 million. You just talked about him dropping into coverage. Well, by the way, Eagles fans are going to hate Vic Fangio because Nick likes to drop his edge rushers in coverage. He's one of those guys.
Yo.
So $25 million. He's got the big cap number. Is there, the Eagles have clearly given him the opportunity to see what his worth is around the league. Does Hassan Reddick even want to play in this all defense? How does it work out with Hassan?
I think Hassan Reddick actually stays here, and I think he's going to go around the league. I don't think he's going to find the money that he's looking for, unfortunately, but he's going to want that opportunity to win, and I think he's going to have that opportunity to win in Philadelphia. The thing that I find really interesting is I went back and I watched – because I read the Omar Kelly piece about the Miami Dolphins and how nobody liked Vic Fangio, too hard-nosed a guy and all that. But I went back and I watched the in-season Hard Knocks, the Miami Dolphins, which I really enjoyed. And I was just looking for any morsel, any just inside scoop, whatever. Just what do these guys say about Vic Fangio, if anything? It took 3.5 episodes for Vic Fangio to even walk by the camera. You didn't even see him. And then I'm like, okay, there he is. What's he saying? Oh, he's talking about Derrick Henry's a good running back. Okay, nope, know that already. And then in, I think, episode 7, around for anyone that wants to go back and watch it. Maybe the 26-minute mark.
This is tremendous Hard Knocks in season knowledge, by the way.
You're
27 minutes into episode 7.
Because I directed people on my shows. Like, if you want to see what I'm talking about here, I think it was the 7th episode.
We lost Mark. We lost your video.
Oh, no. Come on.
Keep talking, Farzetta. You look good.
We got your audio. We got
What?
your audio, though.
I don't know why that happened. That's damn ridiculous if I ask me. So anyway, if you go back, this is Hard Knocks, HBO cutting me off from this information. Anyway, they talked about a bunch of the defensive players were having dinner, and they talked about how Vic Fangio is this defensive genius and how other players around the league or other teams around the league run his offense because he is that good. And they said, once you master it, you can have a lot of freedom. And I thought that was interesting because I know every defensive player wants a little bit of freedom at least. But once you master the idea, you can have that freedom. So I thought that was interesting. And we'll see if the Eagles players actually go out there and they actually earn that freedom from the Vic Fangio defense.
Marc Farzetta, since we can't see you anymore.
I don't know what the hell happened.
Someone is screaming for another. Go. There you go. Someone's screaming for another bowl of tricks since they don't have to go to school today. We're going to let you get out the milk and the balls and take care of your youngins. Thank you much for jumping in.
And I apologize again for being a Kyle Shanahan-like game manager. Bad job.
This just rolls into the second overtime. This just rolls into the second overtime. That's all that happens.
The rules of engagement slip past us, too.
Always a pleasure.
Farzy, good stuff. Thanks, bud. John McMullen, Jody McDonald here with you on Birds 365. Farzy always.
Yeah, I Kyled that one up, man. Ooh, that was a bad job.
As did I, and I knew he was supposed to be out of 45, but he didn't look like he wanted to disengage. So I'm going. We wind Farzetta up and we just let him roll.
Yeah, it's a compliment, man. He's
kind
just
of on
going
him,
and
not on us.
Yeah.
Farzetta can blame himself as far as I'm concerned.
All right.
He's still listening. Good, he heard that. Birds fans, here's your chance to save up to 40% on your car insurance right now from one of JAKIB Sports' great partners. Here's what you need to do. Call one of their 2 managing partners, either Jim or Fran, and tell them you're a friend of both JAKIB Sports and Birds 365.
Go to get your game